All right, I am happy to be joined by Brett Lorin, host of the Too Tall Sports podcast, formerly a fifth round pick by the Seattle Mariners. Brett, how are you doing tonight?
Good. Thank you for having me, Francisco. It's always good to be on with you. So happy to be back.
Absolutely. I wanted to have you on to maybe discuss your history through the minors, as well as maybe some things that you saw while being a minor leaguer that you think should be changed, and what you hope will be changed with these new laws and rules that baseball is kind of implementing, hopefully this season, once we have a season, I guess I should say. But
Right.
before that, I want to talk to you about your podcast. How did the idea of Too Tall Sports podcast come about, and how is that going?
It's going great. I can't, like a lot of people, the pandemic hit. And so, first couple months of the pandemic, I kind of, I actually got laid off. So I was like, I got some time here. So I always kind of wanted to get into sports media. And a good start for me, I thought, would be a podcast. I have a lot of connections through my minor league career and just people I know, different college coaches. And so I was like, I enjoy interviewing people and I like getting stories and also shedding some light on the minor leagues, like you talked about, which
Yeah.
is kind of unknown. It's a kind of a mysterious life. And people only see the people that on TV that get to the big leagues. There's hundreds and thousands of dudes trying to get there too underneath that you don't see. So it was just a mixture of all of that, and I started doing it. I was nervous, of course, to put myself out there like everybody else, but you push through it, and now it's like a routine. Every week I got an episode, so it's been fun, and I'm enjoying getting better at it and finding new guests to interview and just delivering good content for my listeners. So it's been fun.
Yeah, you talk about just starting, and so many times you hear people say, like, if you want to just start a podcast, just do it. It's not hard to start a podcast. It's hard to keep going. Like,
Yes.
once you realize, like, this is a lot of work, editing and planning and getting guests and actually creating content that people would like to hear.
Right.
But how did you what was one of the biggest maybe struggles as a podcaster that you've gone through, and maybe how you dealt with that?
I think the hardest thing for most, 95% of podcasters is looking at the numbers and how many downloads you have. And, if you're not backed by a major network, you're just
Hmm.
not going to get that kind of buzz about it's just very
Hmm.
hard to grow your podcast to these gigantic numbers without someone pushing your stuff out there. So I think just remembering why you're doing it, you're not doing it just for listeners. You're doing it because you enjoy it and you like sharing, people's stories. And I think the hurdle is the first hurdle is imposter syndrome, thinking you don't belong in this
Yeah.
space, right?
Yeah.
So getting comfortable with that, and then the direction you're going to go. And then once, everybody hits this wall where it's like you get a spike in the beginning because everybody is going to give you a shot and
Yep.
listen.
Yep.
And then you kind of flatten out. And it's hard to mentally stay with it. You just have to remember why you're doing it. And it's for yourself and providing good content to the people that listen.
Absolutely, for sure. And like, I started mine really randomly. Like, I had someone DM me and he asked, "Hey, I know you do a little bit of writing about the Brewers. Do you want to come on my podcast and talk with me?" And I was like, "Yeah, totally." And then I after we were messaging, I'm thinking to myself, what did I just get myself into? Like, I've never podcasted before. I've never been a guest on a podcast. I'm like, do I need a mic? Do I need? And he's like, no, just use your earphones for your phone, and like, that's it. Like, we'll go from there. So I was on there for maybe like a 20-minute segment, and we were just talking about the Brewers right before the season started. And I'm like, wow, this is actually kind of fun. Like, just talking about sports, and people listen to it. And then I thought, after going on his podcast maybe another 3, 4 times, I'm like, well, why don't I just start my own? Like, I
Yeah,
can do this too. So I
sure.
went to Best Buy, bought a mic, found a couple co-hosts, and then we just started talking Brewers, mostly, predominantly. That's kind of how the podcast was geared towards. And then just kind of through life and other things, it ends up just being me now. And I've kind of steered away from strictly the Brewers because I love talking to everybody in the sports world. I know your podcast covers like every sport.
Yeah, I think that's smart. It's hard to just dial in on one team, and especially like in the offseason right now, like what could you possibly talk
Yeah.
about the Brewers right now? So
Yeah.
I stay away from fantasy talk. I stay away from one single team. I want broad, excuse me. I want broad topics and stories and because if there's no sports, if there's no games going on for your one sport,
Mhm.
I have stories and people that can talk about their history of
Yeah.
their careers to talk about, or sports writers or sports psychologists, stuff that applies to everybody. I'm not just reliant on what happened in last night's game, So I'm with you on that. I think it's hard to cover one team.
Yeah, and to be honest, like, it was getting really repetitive. Every
Right.
episode was like, "Wow, the Brewers can hit, but the Brewers have really good pitching," And then it's like,
You're
"Oh,
right.
man," like, it's every day, it's like, "Oh my goodness," like, I don't wanna keep talking about the same exact thing, and I love watching the Brewers. I
Sure.
also love watching Oakland, like, I was born and raised in the Richmond, Bay Area, and I just a team I grew up loving. Obviously, I live here in Wisconsin, so I cover the Brewers as well, but, like, I wanna be able to talk to everybody in the sport. Like, I stick to baseball
Sure.
predominantly, but no matter what team you're playing for, like, I will talk to you if you want to talk baseball. And it's real selfish kind of too, because like I've gotten a chance to talk to some incredible guests, and you just had a big get this past your past podcast. You had the gentleman from FS1 is gonna I can't remember his name at the
No,
top
it's
of the
Rob Parker.
Rob
Yeah.
Parker. Yeah, that was some
Yeah.
good conversation. He has some interesting Curry takes. I'm a Warriors fan, so we'll leave that to the side for
I'm with
now.
you on
But
that. Probably your stance, whatever your stance is. I'm probably with
yeah,
you on
yeah,
that.
I was
So
not in a complete agreement with what he was saying, but you know what? He is a basketball guy. I'm not. I'm just a fan of the game.
sure.
But yeah, so how has it been like getting guests on your podcast and all that?
Yeah, it's been great. It helps that I played, so I have a little bit of credibility when I bring them on,
Mhm.
and I just kind of tell, like, basically, you have to make sure they know. Look, I'm not a member of the media yet, but I'm not here
Yeah.
to I'm not out to get you. I'm not trying to make you look bad. I just want your story, and if you're willing to come on and
Mhm.
share it, I'm going to be prepared and ask good questions, so it'll be real easy and flow nice. And so
Yeah.
I think once people get on with me and they're like, oh, this is comfortable, it's easy, so
Mhm.
then they open up a little bit more, because as you know, as a podcaster, the first 10-15 minutes sometimes people are kind of reserved,
Yeah.
so you have to let them get comfortable, and then they will start revealing some good stuff about their life. So I think it's all about
Absolutely.
the questions. Yeah.
For sure. And also like not coming on like strong, like, all right, I
Right.
got a list of questions, boom, boom, boom. Like, try to
Yeah,
create
you want
a
it
rapport.
conversational.
Yeah, right, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, and that's kind of how I like to go about it. I don't like just diving straight in like, all right, you batted this year. Like, how does it make you feel? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
chill out.
Right.
But no, that's cool. Yeah, I've had some incredible. I think I had Jeff Blum on from
Oh, okay. Yeah.
the Astros play-by-play on the TV. That was pretty cool. He's probably my biggest guest
Yeah,
that I've
he's a
had
funny
on.
guy.
Super chill. Like it was
Yeah.
actually a really fun conversation. But like I said, selfishly, I've been able to talk to super super cool people, and just been able to dive deeper into the sport. Like I never played, but just talking to people who are
Sure.
playing or had played or talk about or write about those who play. It's been really fun. Like I said, it's kind of selfish, but at the same time, just being able to get my voice out there and their
No,
voice
not at
out there as
all.
well.
I think, you know what? Honestly, you'd be surprised. That's what I'm also learned in this process. You'd be surprised who says yes to come on your show. Like, people generally like to talk about their career. And
Yep.
when you get it from them directly, it's from the horse's mouth. They get to say, it's not the media telling their
Yeah.
story, especially if they're a former athlete. They get to tell their story. So I think that's the important part, is if you just set them up and just let them go. I think I'm surprised how many people are open to talking about their career, it's fun to see that.
You're right. And I've been surprised how many people I've asked and they're like, "Yeah, sure." And I'm like, "Wait, what? Like,
You,
you sure?"
you
Because
sure?
sometimes you talked about the imposter syndrome, and I get that all the time. I'm sure that I'm not
Sure.
the only one. You as well.
Yeah.
But like, am I really like? Do they really want to talk to me about? But no, people are really open to like talking sports. So for those listening, if you ever thought to yourself like, I should start a podcast, like, go for it. I highly recommend it. You talked about the numbers. Don't look at the numbers at least
No.
for a year. Like, forget about it, because to be honest, no, the market is so saturated. Like, there's so many. Everyone has a podcast
Right.
nowadays. It's kind of hard to stand out. You just got to make sure your content is different, unique, and eventually the numbers will come. That's kind of my thoughts on that.
Yeah, and you know what else? Doing an interview show, not everybody's going to know every single guest that you have on. So if some
Right.
people right off the bat, if they don't know the name that you're interviewing, they just might not listen. It's just the way interview shows go. And you get a big name, they'll show up for you.
Hmm.
So it's you can't do it just for numbers, like you were saying.
No, I agree, because like I'll scroll through people's like things. I'm like, I don't know who that is, or like, oh, this person. Like, I really want to hear what they have to say, so I'll jump on and listen to that podcast. I think that's how everyone is.
Yeah.
It's just a way. I think it's just human nature, kind of like, we kind of want what we want when we want it, and not. I don't know. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
Podcasting's fun though. I have to admit, like, it's a ton of fun.
It is.
Yeah, but hey, let's take a quick turn here and talk about your career. You I previously mentioned you were drafted by the Seattle Mariners in the 5th round. At what point did you fall in love with the game of baseball? And at what point did you think, this is something I could do and make a career out of?
When I was in high school, I was playing both basketball and baseball, and I'm actually at heart. I know most people don't want to hear this, but like, I'm a basketball guy at heart, so that's why I have passions about other things than just baseball. I'm not just a baseball lifer, and I know we'll talk about that with independent ball and all that stuff later. But I made a business decision after high school because I had an offer for Division II basketball, and I decided to walk on at a D1 baseball program, University of Arizona. So I took a chance there. I wasn't a scholarship guy, but I thought my best chance to succeed would be in baseball, being 6'7" pitcher, downhill, good arm. So I just thought my odds are better in baseball. And so I went with that. And when I was at U of A, I loved the school. I just didn't pitch very much. I redshirted my first year and barely pitched my second year. So I transferred to Long Beach State, which was the best move I could have made in my career. And once again, could have just stayed at U of A and had fun and been a 4-year guy. Probably wouldn't get drafted. But, if you want to get drafted and get exposure, you got to pitch. So I needed to change schools to go pitch. So that's when I went to Long Beach. That's kind of what changed the trajectory of my career.
You meant your podcast is called Too Tall Sports, and
yeah,
that's aptly named because you are how tall are you? You're
6'7",
6'7". So yeah, basketball was probably maybe more. But people, when they see you, think, "Oh man, basketball player."
Everyone always asks me that, right? Yeah, like, "Oh, where'd you play?" I'm like, and then when you like, especially at the grocery store, I'm like, "Okay, here we go." And now I got to talk about this. It's like, wait, why didn't you play basketball? Well, I played baseball. But what position did you play? Why didn't like? It's just like, wait, you're not a volleyball player. You're not a swimmer. I'm like, dude, no, I played baseball. Give it up. Can I buy my stuff and get out of here, please?
Yeah.
No, it's funny how people react to being a little bit higher than the average person.
Yeah. As a walk-on, did you notice a difference? As not being someone that they recruited or given like a scholarship?
100%, because I like, not trying to go after anybody, but when I got drafted 2 years later, I went higher than a lot of the guys that they were pitching more than me. So when I went to Long Beach and they still had their scholarship guys there, I went a lot higher other than a few first rounders, than most of their pitchers that were on scholarship there. So that was kind of validation for me, saying, okay, I can pitch at this level. But when I was there, like I said, I redshirted the first year. I threw 9 innings total my second year. I didn't have a role. I was not a guy there. And if I were going to come back as a junior, it would have been the same scenario. So once again, kind of made a business decision. Like I said, I love going to school there, but if I'm going to get exposure, I got to pitch. So that's why I went to Long Beach. And also, by the way, total gamble. I didn't know what my role was going to be there. And I went from a middle reliever literally to start the year at Long Beach. And by the end, I'm throwing in a playoff game as a starter and winning a regional playoff game. So a lot can happen in 1 year.
That's incredible. And do you think just because you were a walk-on, that's why you didn't get those innings?
Partially, you know what? I hadn't filled out, like wasn't fully grown yet. I think my junior year, I really I didn't do a lot of mechanical work at U of A. And then when I got to Long Beach, the pitching coach there was really good. And he got my body kind of dialed into figuring out how all my limbs move. You know what I mean? Yeah. So they had a good pitching structure there where I was watching film, and it was much better for my mechanics when I got to Long Beach, and I figured out how to use my body and throw better and become a better pitcher. So I think I just didn't get the attention that I needed at U of A, and that's why I left.
Why Long Beach, though, out of curiosity?
Well, okay, so it's about 45 minutes from where I grew up. They have a great baseball program. Honestly, I was thinking about a couple other schools too. Like Cal State Fullerton is their big rival, and I was actually going to throw a bullpen for them that summer when I was transferring. But I threw a bullpen for Long Beach first, and before I could really start getting in the weeds with Fullerton, they were like, "Hey, we want to have you, come out here." So it was, like I said, like there were other great pitchers that I've had on my podcast, not all of them, but like Abe Alvarez was there. He played in the big leagues. Jared Weaver came before me. So they had a little history of legit college pitchers go through there. So it was a good program that I thought might make sense for me to and there was also a stacked team. They were going to get a lot of attention in the draft with scouts and stuff like that. So, like I said, I kind of bet on myself, but I had enough confidence to say I can pitch at this level. So
Yeah.
that's why I did it.
And how did it go from being a middle reliever, only pitching 9 innings in a season
Yeah.
or a college season, to now being one of their dudes who, like you said, was pitching playoff games and now getting like heavily scouted by MLB scouts?
You have to earn the trust of your coaches when you're there. So, whatever, like I said, didn't have a role, and they would throw me in situations, and they were like, okay, we can trust this guy. Let's try, because we would have midweek games too. You'd have your Friday, Saturday, Sunday series, and then we'd also have random Tuesday and Wednesday games sometimes. And then I started a Tuesday game, did well. Then I started another Tuesday game, did well. Then I got a Sunday game, and then it just progressed into I was the, Friday's your ace kind of thing. I threw a Saturday night game in a meaningful playoff game. So it's just building the trust of your coaches and continuing to, put up zeros, as they say, as a pitcher, and get them to trust you to put you out there.
Was there because I know like baseball players are like creatures of habit. That's what the saying is. Was there a huge difference in like your like preparing for a bullpen as opposed to now being every other? I guess it wouldn't be every fifth game.
Yeah, it's like every 7 days.
Every 7 days.
Totally different mentality, and it's just like that in the minors too. Starting pitchers are very regimented on a schedule, right? It's like, okay,
Yep.
you pitch, then day off in your light throwing, then bullpen, then lifting, running, and then you start again. It's very regimented and structured. If you're a reliever, you got to be possibly ready to throw every single night and have a short memory, and you never know when your number is going to get called, but you got to be ready. So it's a totally different mindset. Some guys really like that. And I did well in both roles once I got to the minors, but you have to embrace that role as well. So what it comes down to is whatever you need to do to get ready to pitch, that's what you do.
For sure. And at what point in your college career did you start noticing that scouts were paying attention to you? Because when you were, previously you weren't pitching very much, and
Right.
I'm sure that they, you were maybe not on the radar.
Yeah.
But at what point did you begin to notice that you were on the radar? Because you said that in your college there were other players who were heavily scouted. At what point did you know that you were one of those guys that they came to also take a look at?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's honestly when I started getting letters in my locker from questionnaires you have to fill out for scouts, and also phone calls, and then as you get closer to the draft, they start taking you out to dinner and to lunches and coffee and just feeling you out, calling you, sitting down with you, figuring out mostly what you will sign for or what you're willing to sign for. And even on draft day, it's crazy. You never really know what's going to happen until your name is called. But you get a lot of interest leading up to the draft. And as the better team you're on, the more eyeballs are going to be on you. So you start, hearing from these scouts, just checking in on you and meeting you and stuff like that. And so, it's hard not to feed into it, but we had a really good team. We had, I think, 8 guys in the first 5 rounds. Like, we were pretty stacked that year. So we had a lot of attention on us, but it was good.
And you were drafted as a junior. Did you ever think about going back for your 5th year?
Possibly.
Year,
so technically I was a redshirt sophomore, junior year, but I actually had 2 more years of eligibility back, coming back. So yes, I totally could have come back. I probably would have been the Friday night guy, the starter, the main, ace starter coming back. And I would have played in the Cape Cod League that summer, which is like the #1 college summer ball league. So lots of scouts out there. Definitely could have. But I think I was just ready to go, man. I felt like I did pretty much what I needed to do in college. I didn't need to hang around again. The team wasn't going to be as good. So I was just ready to go. So that's why I decided to sign.
I guess with so many being drafted out of that team, like the returning team wouldn't have been as stacked.
Right.
As that makes sense. Now, when you were drafted or previously to being drafted, I know the Mariners had taken you. How many teams had contacted you or seemed like they were really interested in drafting you?
Most of almost all, like not all of them, but most of the teams.
Okay.
Yeah. And even I was getting phone calls the morning of the draft, like, hey, will you sign for this? Will you sign for this? We might take you in this round. Are you going to sign? And I don't know, man. I'm not sure. Like they were, obviously they always lowball you on the number. So it's just, you never really know. But yeah, lots of teams were interested. It's just, it depends how the draft goes and their draft boards, who comes off their list first. And you really never know until you get called.
And how was that feeling of getting drafted? Like what did you do that day? I guess, like, did you have a draft party?
No,
What
that's the key, by the way. Unless you're what do they call it, surefire first rounder. Like, no, I highly recommend not having a draft party because you really don't know. And I was projected to go 4 to 6, somewhere in there. I went in the fifth, so right in the middle.
Mhm.
But like, even as the third round came to a close, didn't hear my name. Fourth round came to a close, didn't hear my name. I was like, I'm not getting drafted today. It's not going to happen. So I did one round later, but it was very stressful. So, yeah, but awesome. When you see your name pop up, my family and I were following the draft tracker on the computer. And before they announced it, I see my name pop up,
Mhm.
Seattle, fifth round. And I was like, no way. And then they're like, and with the, 162nd pick, we picked right along. I was like, oh my God. So it was really cool.
What was that feeling like of finally seeing your name kind of scroll across the screen
Yeah.
and have
It's,
that, like, all the years of hard work finally, like, coming to, like, all worth it?
Yeah, exactly that, man. Like, my parents were right there and they were taking me to pitching lessons and, all the travel ball games, just everything, even basketball included. Just the amount of time my parents put into getting me as good of an opportunity as you can get as a high school kid and college kid, just thanking them and just all the work you put in. Finally, it's validated. You can't really substitute that feeling. And so once you do get drafted, you're like, someone believes in me, so
Mhm.
it's a really cool feeling.
So when you did get drafted, did you go to rookie ball? What's the next step in that process of getting drafted, and then what happens next?
Right. So if you're like a player from Latin America or a high school draft pick, you'll
Mhm.
probably go to rookie ball. So what I went to first was called short season, which is like a bunch of the college draft picks. It starts in June and you play like half of a minor league year.
Mm.
Um, and so I started there. And then within 3 weeks, I got moved up to low A right away to, coincidentally, the Wisconsin Timber Rattlers right in
Yeah.
your neck of the woods.
Yep. Yep.
So that was Seattle's low A for a while. So I went to Everett, Washington first for 3 weeks, and then got moved up to low A. Did okay there, and
Hmm.
then I started moving up after that. But anyway, yeah. So I hit every level in the minor leagues.
How was it in Wisconsin? Like, how did you enjoy your experience?
Yeah, I thought it was great. A little bit of an older team, so I was kind of like was a fifth round pick coming in. Like these guys, everybody they don't want to see new young guys come in because they might take their spot. It's just
True.
how it
It's
is.
true.
So I had to get used to the minor league life. I didn't break camp from spring training with these guys. I didn't really know anybody. So it was a struggle in the beginning, but other than that, it was fine. I loved playing there. It was great. The stadium's awesome. The people are great in Wisconsin. So no complaints about playing there. The bus trips in that league are long. You're going from Michigan, Illinois, Iowa. It's a
Mm.
lot of bus rides and overnights and Ohio a little bit, and it's a lot of travel in that league. But it's a good league, and I enjoyed my time in Wisconsin.
Yeah, no, I've been here, what, 7 years now, I think, and I've enjoyed it. I also grew up in California, although I grew up in NorCal, Bay Area, which of course is why big Warriors fan,
Yeah.
A's and Raiders. Although they're gone, they're out in
You might
Vegas.
lose the A's too.
You know what? I hope they do. Like, I'm kind of tired of yeah,
No,
not to
yeah,
like
they might build a
go
great
off
stadium
topic.
in Vegas for them.
Vegas has been such a huge sports town.
Yeah,
Like we see all the Knights, what they do, and then the A's actually have the Las Vegas Aviators, their AAA team, and they have a
right.
beautiful stadium out there. And then of course the Raiders, like that stadium is packed. I know, like before the Knights went out there, the Golden Knights, I think a lot of people were like, well, it's Vegas, like these players are gonna have so much like temptation to like just go out and spend money and maybe
Yeah,
like kind of derail their career at some way, but it's been a really good sports town, I feel like, and I feel like Oakland, they need another. If they're gonna move anywhere, I hope it's Las Vegas because I mean, who wouldn't want to go to Vegas to see a
exactly,
baseball
man.
game?
I would love to play there. It'd be awesome. And the Raiders fans, as you know, travel well. So wherever
Oh yeah,
they're at, they'll find them.
absolutely. And like I feel like Oakland as a city has kind of screwed up. They lost the Raiders twice, L.A. and they came back and
Yeah, the
then back.
stadiums, it sucks. It's
It's a
old.
dump. It's
Yeah.
a complete dump. But we have T-shirts as A's fans that say baseball's last dive bar. That's what
Oh
we that's what
God,
we that's what we
that's
call
what it is.
the stadium. Yeah. But it is what it is. I think if they move, it'd be fine. Hopefully it's Vegas. Nashville is another city I've heard. I
They
think.
got a AAA team there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they used to be the A's AAA back maybe
I
like
think they're the
13,
Brewers now,
14.
right?
Now they're the Brewers, yeah.
Yeah,
So it was the A's and went to the Brewers. It might have been the Brewers, might have been the Rangers too. I think it was the A's, the Rangers, then the Brewers. Even no matter what, like I feel like they need to find somehow the Rays and the A's need new stadiums because
yeah,
both of those places are just total dumps.
for sure.
Not to get so off topic, but yeah, it's a complete mess. In your life as a minor leaguer, you talked about the long bus rides. Um, how was that in low A, double A, and then even triple A? Because you said you played all levels. How
Right.
was is there a huge difference in like the transportation and the food and the accommodations? What was your experience? Because you hear about the experiences now, and we talked about how like I feel like baseball, like minor leagues, is kind of like an unknown. Like fans
Yeah.
don't. I think fans maybe don't want to know because then they'll feel kind of like they're going through that and they're only getting paid this. They're professional baseball players who went through college and all that just to get paid like $1,000 or whatever a month. Like
Right.
it's insane how underpaid and like underappreciated they are. And so many don't ever get to the majors, right? Like you look at the statistics. I don't know off the top of my head, like what percentage get actually to play in the majors, but it's not a very big number.
Right.
So they should be getting paid, well above minimum wage, basically.
Yeah, I mean the bus ride they suck in every league, honestly. Yeah. I was in so low A was the Midwest league, so like I mentioned, all the Midwest states. So those are the long ones. The accommodations, the higher you get, the better the accommodations get, and the better stadiums you're playing in most cases. Sometimes you'll get a random like Fort Wayne, Indiana, which has an unbelievable stadium, or the Dayton Dragons in Ohio. They sell out every game, unbelievable stadium. But other times you'll get crap places like, no offense, Clinton, Iowa, one of the worst places I've ever played. But it's just a mix of both. The problem is that you're expected to perform at a high level even that next night after a 10-hour bus ride, and you show up at 3 a.m. in the morning. You try to go to sleep, you wake up at a weird hour, you go to the field, do it all over again. Some people don't have sympathy for you because you're playing a game, but it's like,
Yep.
dude, I'm expected to perform at my best, and if I don't do well for a while, I might get released. Like, this is my livelihood here. So yeah, they're making moves to have better accommodations, I think. But honestly, all the money's in the big leagues. They don't care that much about the minor leagues. It's just meant to weed people out until you get to the big leagues. So in high A, I played in the Florida State League, which you would think is good because most of the travel is 4 hours or less on bus. But sometimes you don't stay in a hotel, so you got to drive back home that night after the game every single time if it's like 1 or 2 hours, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's annoying for a 4 or 5 game series driving there and back every single day. So there's just little things like that. Double A wasn't, you would think it's better. It's really not. I was in the Southern League, so all in the South and, Alabama and, a little bit of Florida, Georgia, just random, states down there. It's I don't know, New Orleans, I guess New Orleans is okay because you're in AAA, but yeah, you don't start taking planes until you're in AAA. So that's the difference.
Wow. And you're not a short guy, so
No.
those bus rides must have been like hell for you.
Yeah, it sucks. Definitely. That's why I say I'm too tall, because I'm too tall for a lot of things, man. And, sitting in buses, cars, shoes, clothes, all kinds of stuff, doorways, it's just the world was not built for tall people. We'll just say that.
How did you like mentally get through like the long bus rides, the food, maybe even just like the living accommodations?
Yeah.
How many people lived with you? Like, I know I've heard stories of people with like 6 people to a
Yeah.
3-bedroom with one in the kitchen, one in the living room on a blow up air mattress. How was it for
That
you?
happened. Yeah, it happened a few times. You rent an air mattress from Walmart for 3 months and you return it, or a TV from Walmart or whatever.
Yeah.
It's hard. You gotta figure out if you gotta find luckily a month-to-month lease, because honestly, there's gonna be dudes changing in and out of there all the time because people are getting moved up, moved down, released, whatever, traded. And yeah, that was one of the crazy experiences of my career, is getting traded mid-season and meeting the next team on the road that I was going to when I was, went to the Pirates. Like, I knew nobody. It's just like a whole. The bottom line is you have no control over any of that stuff. All you have control over is how you perform on the field. That's it. You cannot worry about why this guy got moved up, why he got moved down, why you're not getting moved up. I think when you get to the season starts, if you count spring training, March 1st-ish, you get to August, you haven't been moved up yet, you're pretty salty at that point, So everybody's tired of each other. You see the same guys every day for 6 months. it can be a freaking grind.
Yeah.
So that part is really tough. But at the end of the day, again, you can't do anything but perform on the field. So one of the I hate this saying, but the coaches and people would tell it to you is like, if you don't like it here, play better. That's what they would
Yeah.
say. And it's just like, dude, I'm playing well. Like,
Yeah.
like well enough to get moved up. It's just you have no control.
How was it? You talked about getting traded. How was it being traded mid-season?
Yeah, it's weird.
Were you were you given a warning like, hey,
No.
you're maybe interested, or they're interested in you?
So yes, technically yes. So my buddy on the team and I got traded together. We were on a bus on the road to a game in Lansing, Michigan, actually. And I was told before I got off the bus, hey, you're not gonna pitch today or tomorrow. You're in trade talks right now.
Wow.
So you can't play because we can't trade a potentially hurt player.
Right.
So I had to sit in the stands for 2 games. My buddy and I just sitting there, wondering what our next move in life is going to be. And once we got the news, we had to fly back to Clinton, Iowa, move out of our apartment, and fly to meet the new team, which was on the road, of course, not at home. So you got all your stuff with you, and you don't even know where you're going to live when you get back there. Hopefully there's an open room that you can be in and live there for the rest of the year. So it's a whirlwind, man. And I think one of the problems of getting traded in the minors is once you leave the original team that drafts you, you're no longer the new team's priority guy. You're just one of the guys because they already have their draft picks that they need to move through the system. So it's definitely, there's some politics going on behind the scenes there, which again, you have no control over.
Yeah, and maybe there's something that can change with that regard in the new CBA. Who knows? Because that's the kind of the life of every minor leaguer who's getting traded. I had someone on earlier. You might know him. Did you know Dario Pisano? He was also a Mariner.
I don't know that name.
I think
Maybe he's after me.
Man, I want to say he got drafted in 14 or 15. I can't.
Oh, okay, that's way after me.
Okay. But he was also, and he was kind of telling me the same thing. Like he was just basically doing the best he can, but was just getting overlooked.
Yeah. And again, if you're not in their plans, like you could be hitting 300 if you're a hitter and doing great, and they're not going to move you up because you're just not their guy. So that's the part that sucks is it's not a performance-based business all the time. There's a lot of non-baseball moves that happen. So
GMs who don't want to admit that maybe they drafted wrong, or maybe
that first rounder isn't as good as they thought, but they need to push him through the system to maybe be able to trade him at some point. There's a lot of stuff going on there.
Yeah, that's wild how much like the politics and like the business side of things can get in the way of someone's career who can, you were an all-star, correct?
I was an all-star in low A and high A. Didn't get moved up in either situation. So I'm just like, again, what else do I need to do to prove to you that I've already outperformed the league? Like making an all-star team should give you like, what else do you need?
Yeah.
So it's just, that's the part that's frustrating, man. That again, you can't do anything about it. So
yeah. How did you deal with that though? Like emotionally, like the stress, I guess I would imagine it's stressful being kind of coming to that realization of no matter what you do, these guys are just like, you're not,
because there's always other teams watching. And so that was the big break in my career when I got Rule 5 to the Diamondbacks. Because again, the Pirates, I was an all-star in high A. I even won a playoff game in the minors for them. And still didn't get moved up. Didn't get any looks after that. And every time I pitched out, if one of the executives was there, I wanted to make sure they knew. I was like, here, I'm going to give you a little extra right here. But that was the big break in my career, going from high A to big league spring training the following year in 2011 with the Diamondbacks. That was my chance. I was on the 40-man to make the big league club out of spring training. And I did great there too. I just, they're not going to put guys that are making a few mil in the minors. It's just, they didn't need to move me in the big leagues, because it was kind of an older team and they were like still in contention. So it was just wrong timing for me. And they sent me down to Double A, which was still a promotion technically, but that was my break in my career, I guess you could say.
So if you were, how did it feel getting in like the Rule 5 draft? Because for those who don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, it's the player, it kind of protects team or players from just kind of being stashed away for years and years,
right?
On a team's roster. How did it feel getting drafted by a different team in that
so
draft?
This is like your way out of being stuck in the minor leagues with the one team that's not going to move you up. So after your 4th year in the minors, whatever team you're on, if they don't put you on their 40-man or protect you, other teams can have at it and pick you in the Rule 5 draft. So that's how the Diamondbacks picked me. And it's a great thing for your career because you immediately go on the 40 man and you go to big
Right.
league camp the following spring. That is like as good as it gets for a minor leaguer that's stuck moving nowhere. So that was huge for my career. Even though I didn't make to the big leagues eventually, that was like, I did get one big league camp, which was pretty cool. So
How was it in big league
it
camp?
was awesome, man.
The
It's
experience.
just a different feeling. You're just around. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Just the names on the lockers. And I was just like, damn, dude, am I really here right now? Like that, it was a little bit of not that I'm like starstruck because there was no
Yeah.
like superstars in there, but there were definitely names that I knew growing up watching. And so it was really cool to be a part of that and just you get whatever, like the clubhouse is awesome. You just get whatever you want. And it's a different lifestyle than the minors. So that was really cool.
Was there anybody on that team that kind of like was like a mentor to you that you kind of looked up to? Or,
Yeah. So if you remember the closer, JJ Putz, he and I
Yeah.
had the same agent. So we had met a few times and he kind of looked after me a little. I was only there for like a month, but he kind of looked after me a little bit. And so it was cool to have that. But there's a lot of big names there. If you remember guys like Willie Bloomquist and Aaron Hill was on that team. And Ian Kennedy was a starter there. And just a lot of dudes that were Justin Upton was still on the team. So there were some yeah, dude, there were some dudes there. So it was cool.
Yeah. Now you said if you're not on the big league roster, you're off. Like how does that work since you didn't break camp?
So they had in the Rule 5 situation, they had to trade someone away to keep me because I didn't make the big league roster out of camp. But they traded to keep me. Also, really cool that they did that. So I still got to be on the 40 man, but I was just like not in the big league. So I was one of their 15 guys in the minors that was like a kind of a priority guy. I happened to not have a great second half of the year in AA there, so that kind of set me back. The following year, I had a good year in AA and AAA, but that year I got sent down. That was like the worst year of my career, unfortunately. So,
at what point did you realize that baseball wasn't going to be your path, maybe your career? Although you spent years of work trying to get to that point, it's probably not an easy conversation to have with yourself. Like maybe this isn't the path for me. When you were sent down, did that like maybe doubt start trying to creep in?
I mean, a little bit because that was the first time in my career I felt like, damn, I can't. Like the month of August that year, I just literally like could not get anybody out. Like I just felt like my stuff wasn't working, and it was the first time I felt overmatched for a little bit. I came back the following year and did really well and started in AA, moved up to AAA, did well. I really thought I was going to get called up. Like I started out really hot in AAA and I was like, I'm one call away, like this could be it. And so I had a great year in AAA and they bring me back to spring training in 2014 and I get released 2 weeks in. I was just like, again, what haven't I shown you guys that you need to see that I can pitch at the next level? So I wasn't one of their guys, and that's what it is. You get pushed out after a while. It's baseball is getting younger. So, and I didn't throw 98, 99, so that didn't help either. A lot of guys will probably tell you they never think they're going to play independent ball until they play independent ball because it's really your last effort chance to make it back to affiliated baseball in the minors. So I told myself I'll play 1 year. Okay. My first, and I'm, by the way, not trying to brag. I'm just telling you what happened.
Yeah.
My first 19 innings in independent ball, scoreless. I didn't give up a run. So I'm like, I can't do anything more. Can someone please call me back to the minors? Anybody? Like, hello, I'm dominating right now. So nope, didn't get the call. And I told myself after that year, I was 28 going on 29. I was just like, I'm not going to be a baseball lifer. I'm not going to play independent ball till I'm 40 and collect checks for nothing. 6 months out of the year. It's not the life I want to live. So that's when I knew after that 1 year, 2014 independent ball, I was done. So
was it?
Go ahead.
No, so was it a tough decision? I can't imagine it's easy. Yeah, but just kind of then thinking like, what do you do next? Did you because you didn't graduate? Did you go back to school?
No, I never went back to school. It was a tough decision, but at the same time, I was at peace because I knew. I mean, everybody can do a little more than they did, but pretty much, I think I have a hell of a resume in baseball. Like what else do I need to do? So I was at peace with my career, and actually, funny enough, I didn't take much time off. I went right into franchising, so I decided to become a franchisee into a Jimmy John's sandwich franchise. Yeah, I know you guys in the Midwest love it. And that's kind
Yep.
of when I got exposed to it because they would deliver sandwiches to the clubhouse, which was
Okay.
awesome. So
Yeah.
that's like when I was like, huh, maybe I'll be a franchisee. I always kind of wanted to own my own business. The business plan is set, it's a good starting block. Little did I know it was the hardest thing ever. And no one knows what it is out here in California. So it's a hard to sell
Yep.
and it's a limited menu and so on and so on. But so I went right into it, but I ended up selling it 3 years later, which is good. It's the right decision. So I was happy to get out and move on with something else.
Does it when you look back at your career and now that you're gone and you're out of the game, do you just looking back, do you miss like what do you miss the most?
I miss the guys. I miss playing cards in the locker room, hanging out before games and just
Hmm.
talking trash to people, everybody going back and forth, and just funny things that we do. And some of the bus rides were fun. Go out drinking after games sometimes with the guys, and just because everybody is in the same position. We're
Yeah.
not working other jobs. Everybody's, for the most part, their families aren't there, so we're just
Hmm.
kind of enjoying it and doing whatever we can, and just the fun stuff in the dugout. And you make the best of it. I think you miss the guys in the locker room. You don't miss the grind of doing first and third drills and team defense and all that BS,
Yeah.
shagging balls and BP, and you don't miss that stuff. You just miss the people.
Yeah, no, I can't even imagine just kind of spending so much time there and then that's
Yes,
kind of taken away from you.
right.
Have you ever thought about getting into like coaching or kind of going that route?
I haven't, you know what? I just, right when I retired, I kind of stepped away from baseball. I just
Okay,
didn't want to be near it. I didn't want to watch it on
that's
TV
fair.
because I didn't want to see these dudes that are getting called up that it's not me up there.
Yeah,
So I
yep.
kind of was bitter at baseball for a while. And that's why I think I recently reconnected with people from my past for the podcast, stuff like that. But coaching wise, maybe down the road. I don't know, man. I don't have the patience right now. I just I'm trying to establish myself in other ways. And by the way, if you want to be a minor league coach and work your way up to the big leagues, it's just
Hmm.
like being a player. You got to start at the lower levels. So do I want to do the bus rides again? Do I want to
That's
write
true.
reports after
That's
games
true.
again? Do I want to watch 142 games a year in the minors again? Not really. Like
Yeah,
it's such a long road. So that's why I want to go the sports media route so I can talk about it. So I'd rather do that.
that's incredible. And you're a basketball guy at heart.
Yeah.
Are you a Lakers fan or a Clippers fan?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely Lakers. If I don't understand how people are Clipper fans out here, but okay, if you want to be anti. Yeah.
Dude, I remember so I'm a Warriors fan, so like
Right.
I
Lucky you.
yeah. Well, hey, I suffered through so many years of bad basketball.
You did.
Like
Yeah.
I was able to go on StubHub and get like a $10 ticket, like the day of the game. Now it's like 100 something for like standing room only, and you're like,
Oh yeah.
wow, okay, we got to really appreciate this because, like, well, Warriors fans, we lost it. Like we had two bad seasons, and then now we're best team in basketball again. It's just
Right.
crazy how it all
And
works
you got
out.
the new arena and everything. It looks
Yeah.
nice.
It is nice. It is nice. Although I haven't been to the new arena, and I always kind of wonder like, is it more corporate now because it's so
Sure.
much more expensive, and
Yeah.
the Bay Area, the Oakland fans aren't. Can they afford those tickets? The vibe I haven't seen. I can't wait to see playoff basketball there because I want to see how that vibe is compared to when it just got wild in Rorigal, as they used to call it at the
Yeah.
Oracle Arena.
Roracle, that's right.
Yeah, yeah. How do you enjoy talking like not only baseball but basketball? And you talk football. I've heard you do your like your monologue in the beginning. I've heard you talk
Yeah.
about football. You talked about baseball. You talked about college football. How do you enjoy that compared to just like only baseball,
Because if I'm being honest, baseball is kind of boring sometimes. So
especially if your team's bad?
right, exactly. I enjoy other things, man. I like, when I do my opening monologue, I call it my 2 cents
Yeah.
for the Two Tall Sports podcast. I like to pick one topic a week that I feel I have an opinion on or a take
Okay.
about, and I try to be logical and set the scene and tell the story. But, I like golf too. I had one the other day about Tiger Woods' kid, how great he was the other day in that tournament. So it's just like,
Mhm.
there's other things I have interest in, or the college football playoff and how ridiculous it is, the way that the committee picks these teams, who's in the Final Four and all that stuff.
Mhm.
I have bigger interest than just baseball, and it's good because it's sports are seasonal. So like I said, I don't want to talk about baseball that much right now.
Yeah.
There's nothing going on, so I need other things to talk about. So that's why I
It's
enjoy it.
it's funny you say that it's boring because for me, I mean, you play the game. For me,
I did, yeah.
I love it. Like it's to me, it's like the best sport in the world. But I've suffered through bad baseball, and it's I think baseball is the worst sport when your team sucks because there's
Yes.
so many games and it's every day. Like it's every day. If it's like once a week, like on Sunday, like you kind of get over it as the week goes by. But if it's a daily, like wow, like I can't even imagine being a fan of a team like the Mariners who haven't been to the postseason in like over 20 years. Just like what are you?
And
What
you
is it
want me
all
to
for?
watch
You know?
162 of these games a
Exactly.
year? Like, no,
Exactly.
thank you, dude. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. And also, what was I going to say? As far as baseball goes, if you're really bad and you're tanking,
Hmm.
I don't think it's fair to expect fans to show up to your games either.
That's true.
Like, that's kind of
Yeah.
BS. You're not even trying to win. So I don't like that aspect either.
And I feel like
Um,
so many teams are tanking. Like
yeah,
the Astros and the Cubs they're like the anomaly. Like how many you look at like the Pirates who have been bad for several years now. The
I
Orioles
had
who
a
have been bad.
huge take on that on those teams. Why is their payroll so low? Why are you
Hmm.
basically a minor league feeding system for all these big league clubs that just steal your players? Because you don't want to pay anybody. Like
Yeah.
I don't get that. And you want me to watch your games? Like that's what I'm saying. Like you're not trying to win. So I don't like that.
Yeah, I hate that. I hate the concept of small market teams. Every team, every owner is rich. You know,
Exactly.
they have a lot of money. Their
Yes.
market doesn't if they want to win, if they want to spend money, like the Rays, if they really wanted and they just broke off, Wander Franco, but if they really wanted to spend all this money on
Yeah.
other players, the owner has the money to do it. It's just like I think he also with Oakland.
I was just
uh
gonna say, how about Oakland, man? They do the same thing
Dude,
all the
it
time.
is so hard being an A's fan, like, legitimately, like, I
Yeah.
remember was it 14? It was after 14, it was Christmas, I was wrapping presents when the Josh Donaldson news broke, when they traded him to Toronto
Yeah.
for Kendall Graveman, Brett Lowry, who was, like, the highlight of that package,
Right.
Franklin Barreto, and I think Sean Nolan, I think was the 4th guy. No one is in the league anymore except Kendall Graveman, he's a reliever, a very good reliever, but you wouldn't trade an all-star, an MVP
No.
third baseman for a reliever, you know?
Right.
And it just happens every year. And this season, again, you see the Matt Olson to the Yankee rumors. You see Matt Chapman to this place, all the rumors, and they want to get rid of Sean Manaea. They want to get rid of Chris Bassett, who's legitimate. Like these are legit players who
Yeah.
why not just
They did
add
it
it?
with Yoenis Cespedes too.
Don't okay, that's a sore topic for me because when that trade happened, I was freaking out. Like I hated it. And then you saw what happened to John Lester in the postseason. He refuses to throw to first base, and the Royals stole like 6, 7 bases on us. Like oh man. It's I still have nightmares and like I'm not over that 2014 season.
Yeah.
Like I don't think I ever will be over that because that was a season when we were the best team in baseball, and then we ended up a wild card team with the lead twice, and then still losing. It's like, oh man, we had the team to win too. Like
For sure.
it was a good season.
I,
Before,
I wanted to bring up one other thing real
yeah,
quick
of
about why
course,
baseball bothers me right now is I
do it.
got out of the game before the analytics got really hot,
Oh
and
yeah,
that is it's making me not want to watch either because the spin rate crap and the exit velocity and launch angle and all this stuff, it's
mm-hmm.
not the same game that I grew up with, and I'm not even that old. I'm 34. So but I'm still old school in that regard.
Yeah,
Like I still think average matters and RBIs and homers matter.
of course.
I just there's things about the game now. There's just not as much action anymore. It's a lot of strikeouts and a lot of walks and a lot,
Mm-hmm.
homers and stuff like that. And it's just not the same game that I remember growing up watching and the passion and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Like, so that's another part of it that I don't like is the heavy, heavy analytics.
I completely agree, especially when you think about. I think the best example is the Rays in the World Series when
Right. They
they pulled this.
overmanage now. It's just like,
Yeah.
you lost your feel for the game. You're not watching anymore. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like, well, third time to the lineup, he's got to come out.
Yeah,
Why?
the computers.
Yeah.
The computer says.
That's just dumb.
Yeah, I hate that. I think it ruins the sport. I understand the importance, but when you're taking away like the gut feeling of a manager and you take away that decision making from him, and you base that off of analytics, which yeah, they may be right some of the time, but they're not always gonna. It's not
No.
always. You have to trust your gut,
Right.
especially as a manager. And I feel like Some of these newer age managers are more on the analytical side, which is why I'm so happy that the Mets hired not the Mets, who just the Mets. They just
Yeah, Buck
hired
Showalter, he's old school.
old school. I love that. I think that's a good move. I think he's gonna be really good. I think the Mets are really gonna be a very good team. I think that the Bob Melvin to the Padres, I think
That's a
that's
good
probably
move
one of
too.
the I think that's probably one of the most underrated moves this whole offseason so far. He's won with the Mariners. He was way before you. He won with the Mariners. He won with Oakland.
Yeah.
4 or 5 trips to the postseason with Oakland. He a roster with the owner who's not afraid to spend money. I think the Padres are going to be legitimately one of the best teams in baseball
Yeah.
this season, and I'm all for it because
So,
like I love Bob Melvin.
yeah, for sure. And some of the, I forget who told me this, but it's true. Baseball used to have Buck Showalters from that era of big personality managers
Yeah,
where they were the star. And now it's like a lot of these managers are just, the sounding board for the front office now.
yeah,
I hate
yes,
to
man,
say it,
almost.
but right,
Yeah.
exactly. So we're hopefully getting back to, and if you look at the managers that were in the World Series, Brian Snicker is like 60 something
Mm-hmm.
years old for the Braves. So it's like Dusty Baker, another
Old
old
school.
school guy.
Yep.
So this new wave of young analytics dudes that are just saying yes and just putting the lineup card up. I don't like that, man. I want gut feeling. I want guys that see the game the way it is being played today versus this means this and this equals this. So I'm old
Yeah,
school in that regard.
for sure. If you think about Dusty Baker when he was with the Giants, when he was with
Yeah,
the Dodgers, what was it, or the Nationals? His biggest thing was that people second guessed some of his decisions, but he trusted his gut,
right.
not analytics, and some of it backfired. But you know what? Like I appreciate the fact that he made the move that he thought was best, not what some nerds
Right.
in the analytical department told him he should do. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that way more than what happened with the Rays when they pulled their best starter after he's just cruising because third time through the order and one
Yeah.
guy got on base.
Exactly. It's stupid.
I am glad we were on the same, and I could just rant about this
Oh, for
forever.
sure. Yeah.
Like it's one of those more frustrating things about baseball.
Yes.
But I want to end on this. We talked about your life in the minors and the experiences. I know I had mentioned that I feel like nowadays there's more awareness of what is going on in the minor leagues. And then there's organizations like Adopt a Minor Leaguer, More Than Baseball, and they're doing all this like work to advocate for the minor leagues. And I try to do what I can. I wouldn't say I'm involved heavily, but from whatever I can do, just having players like you on and other minor leaguers on. I had Cade McClure on, who kind of set Twitter afire when he quote tweeted Draymond Green. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. When Draymond was complaining about their travel and stuff.
Yeah, I had him on the next week. I said, "Hey, talk to me
Wow.
about why you quote tweeted him and explain this to me." So there's like an awareness of what's going on now. What is your thoughts on what baseball can do more to kind of help these minor leaguers out?
I think they started in the right direction, I believe, a couple months ago, saying the teams will cover housing now, which they should be covering housing for 6 months. Like I said, it's hard to find month-to-month leases, all the time.
Yeah.
Just take care of the housing. We're like you mentioned earlier, we're making $1,000 a month, for
Hmm.
6 months, and then what? We make nothing in the off season.
Right.
So the food's got to be better, which is hard to do. But if we can get the food better, these are professional athletes. Like we're getting paid to play, and we're some of the best baseball players in the
Hmm.
world. Even though we're in the minor leagues, we're still some of the best players in the world, and we're making peanuts for baseball.
Yeah.
So the pay's got to get better. Like we shouldn't be making minimum wage as a professional baseball player. I'm sorry, like we should not. So
No, I
as
agree.
many hours as we spend at the field, we're there 10, 11 hours a day. So,
Hmm.
like it's just it's such a grind. They should help out a little more. I think contracting the minors a little bit might have been a good thing. Maybe, shortening the road to get there. But yeah, taking care of guys sooner. One of the big things at the CBA right now is that it's hard to hit free agency in professional sports. It's like 7 years the team has control
It's
over you.
wild.
So we want guys to get paid sooner and younger because it's just not a lot of guys hit free agency in baseball. You might hit arbitration if you're lucky after your third
Hmm.
year, but 7 years to stay, that's a long time. So I agree. It's professional sports is so hard, just like football. It's, average career is 3 years. Pay them sooner because it's tough. It's tough life.
Yeah, if you think about all the money that they've spent from little league to high school to college to minors, and they're finally getting to professional baseball, and they can get paid more working at like Target.
Right, exactly.
It's
It's
wild.
crazy, dude. And that's year
Yeah.
round your job. We don't get paid in the off season. So we
Yeah.
have to make X amount of dollars in 6 months. And then what? You want us to try to, who's going to hire me for 6 months every off season? Like,
Hmm.
I'm not, it's not sustainable. So
Yeah, so I was talking to another minor leaguer, and I said, "Hey, come on the podcast, let's talk." And he said, "Well, I'd like to, but I work like from like 2 to 2." And I'm like, "Wow, like okay, well, you focus on that. That's way more important,
yeah,
working
man.
so many hours just to
Yeah.
kind of get enough money saved so that you can kind of live off what you're making as a minor leaguer, which is insane how low. And I like again, I don't think so many people know, and I don't think people are as willing to know, because once you know, you kind of feel like you have to do something about it. Not knowing something is so much more easier than knowing, like, wow, these young guys, and talking about like foreign players coming from another country, and then some of them send the money back home because their
Yeah.
family need the money more than they need it here.
Right.
It's just it's kind of infuriating if you think about it, which is why I'm glad that there's been such a push to like really um, like advocate for these guys.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's still a very long road. Don't get me
Oh
wrong.
yeah,
Like them taking care of housing, okay. Like
it's a
it's a
small
nice
start.
thing. It's a
Yeah.
small start. But at least the awareness is getting there. It's out
Hmm.
there, so it's in the right direction. But until I start seeing guys getting paid better in the minors, then we'll talk. But until then, it's just going to be here. We'll give you a little piece and then another little piece, and until they never do anything. So
Yeah, that's the way it goes. Baseball is a slow sport, slow to change, and I just, and the owners are so just focused on all the billions of dollars that they
right,
spend on players. Like we saw, like think all the contracts we saw, like what, a day before the lockout happened, but yet no money is really heading toward the minors, who are like they're the next wave of players, right? And you would think you would want to put them in the best position to win, so that
yeah,
they can, go, and then go to perform in the majors. But
right,
that is what it is.
yeah,
But hey, Brett, I want to thank you for coming on. I do appreciate this. I'll have to have you back on again because I enjoy talking baseball with you.
sure.
Maybe next time we'll come on. We'll talk some Steph Curry and rectify some wrong takes that were perhaps talked about on your podcast.
Yeah.
Give your podcast a shout out and tell us where we can find you on social media.
Yeah. So you can find me at Too Tall Sports Podcast. So TOO Tall Sports Podcast
Hmm.
everywhere. Instagram, on Twitter, it's at Too Tall Sports. I am on TikTok making a lot of content on there lately. So you can find me at Too Tall Sports Podcast on TikTok. I do a lot of storytelling and showcasing guys that I used to play with in the minors and my best and worst stadiums I've ever played in. That's a fun series. So yeah, all that stuff. Just it's fun. So I do create some content on social media, but you can follow me anywhere. All this audio and on YouTube, you can follow me. Just type in Too Tall Sports Podcast.
Awesome. Well, hey, you have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks, man. Appreciate it.